Ladies and gentlemen, if you can, please take your seats. We're going to call this meeting to order. I now declare this special Vernon Town meeting in order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. So far, I only see one person here who is not a Vernon resident, and that's our town attorney, Larry Slason. Because we're paying him, hopefully not by the word, we will allow him to speak when called upon unless there is any objection by the body. I'd like to briefly go over the rules of the meeting. You all were handed a voter card when you came in. When you want to speak, hold your voter card up and go to the microphone in the center of the floor. First person there ought to make sure that it's on. And from there, we will tell you that this is a 2-item warning. And just so you know, before the start of the meeting, curbside collection will be ending in September, no matter what we do tonight, with the last collection day being Friday, September 27th of 2024. I'd like to introduce Sandra Harris, the board chair, who will introduce her full select board. Sandy?
Good evening.
A little closer.
Okay, I'll eat it. Hi, this is Shelley Banford, our town administrator, Jean Carr, librarian, select board clerk, wealth of knowledge, Brandon Bukowski, and Jim Pinkerton, our newbies.
And we also would like to thank the volunteer committee who helped do the research on this article. It's time for Article 1. Shall the voters authorize the construction and operation of a mobile transfer station on town hall property for refuse, recyclables, and compost at a total estimated cost of $167,492, comprised of $16,450 for supplies, materials, and yard fencing to be paid from the Solid Waste Fund, $58,200 for trash roll-off rental, part-time attendant and trash disposal fees to be paid from pay-as-you-throw revenue, and a balance of $92,842 for recycling roll-off, compost container rental, as well as recycling, compost, and municipal solid waste disposal fees to be raised by taxes. Is there a motion on the floor for Article number 1? Mr. Pinkerton.
I move that the voters appropriate the sum of $167,492. That's $1,670,482 to be comprised of $16,450 for supplies, materials, and yard fencing to be paid from the Solid Waste Fund, $58,200 for trash roll-off rental, part-time attendant, and trash disposal fees to be paid from pay-as-you-throw revenue, and the balance of $92,800 and $42, that's $9,842 for recycling roll-off and compost container rental, as well as recycling, compost, and municipal solid waste disposal. Fees to be raised by taxes.
Do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded that, and I'll repeat this from what I have in my notes here, that the voters appropriate the sum of $167,492 to be comprised of $16,450 for supplies, materials, and yard fencing to be paid from the Solid Waste Fund, $58,200 for trash roll-off rental, part-time attendant, and trash disposal fees to be paid from pay-as-you-throw revenue, and a balance of $92,842 for recycling roll-off and compost container rental, as well as recycling, compost, and municipal solid waste disposal fees to be raised by taxes. Mr. Pinkerton, do you or any board member wish to speak to the motion? Mr. Bukasi.
Yeah, I just wanted to add some clarification to the informational meeting we had last week. As I went home and processed, I could see where there was some confusion, and I think what it requires a little history of how we got here. As a select board and as a solid waste committee, for years, Triple T has treated the town very well with their curbside pickup. The costs have been very minimal, let's say very close to inflation year after year, reasonable increases. We got a proposal from Casella that was over 3 times what the previous owners, Triple T, had the previous year. And we got that very close to our March town meeting, and things have been going status quo with the curbside pickup with Casella. We didn't even have a solid waste committee in place because there wasn't a need one, frankly, for the past, things have been going so smooth, there wasn't a need for one. When we got that proposal, we got a solid waste committee together, and we started coming up with ideas, knowing we had this really short period of time to town meeting to get this done, and that residents were going to want answers. Even though we did this special town meeting, we felt like if we pushed that ahead anymore, people are going to want to know what they were going to do with their trash before September 30th. So we came up with this transfer station idea. We quickly ruled Casella out from a logistic and fiscal standpoint. It just did not make sense for our town. We felt like we ought to present some options to the town that we shouldn't, we felt like we needed to facilitate some options to the town. The 2 options we had left were transfer station and just, everyone kind of taking care of their own trash. As we processed the transfer station, we came up with what we felt like it was a solid, in the amount of time we had, was a solid plan. It is a plan that will work if we vote it in. We feel like, as a solid waste committee, we are recommending that we vote this down. And the reason we feel that is there are other good options in town, options from local haulers that would work better probably for the majority of residents in town from a logistics standpoint and from a fiscal standpoint. We feel like in the amount of time we have, if we want a transfer station that really is going to make sense for the town, we probably need another year to plan on that. So our recommendation would be vote this article. There's a little irony here because we proposed it, but it just had to do with the time frame and the desire to give townspeople a choice. But we do, as a committee, feel as though this should be voted down. For the next year, residents should, try out taking care of their own garbage and see how that works. And if a year, if that's working terrible, we can really have the time to put into a transfer station, find a good location, and really do it differently than what we have proposed here.
Thank you. Further discussion on Article 1? And again, make sure the mic is on and state your name when you come to the mic. And I see no one. Oh, go ahead, ma'am. We've got a couple people. Did you get your voter card? Did you get your voter card? Yes. So make sure you wave it next time. Make sure the mic's on.
My name is Mary Ellen Weston. I live up on Tyler Hill. My question's really, would the mobile station having that, if that passed, would that increase our taxes?
The Select Board is queried. Mr. Bukasi?
So I guess to answer that question, when we put this transfer station together, and I think if we put one together going forward, it would be the right move. We tried to move the majority of the liability of the cost onto the users, since only 25 to 30% of the town is doing curbside. So as far as effect on tax rate, what I can tell you is currently, the current Casella curbside pickup is costing us $137,552 a year. The transfer station, we have that budgeted at $167,542. So they're right in the same range. But I think if you're looking as far as from a fiscal standpoint, the best option would be no town involvement. Try that out for a year. You know, there's really good options there. And I guess to add to that, as we process this transfer station idea, we were looking at towns like Jamaica, Wilmington, Townsend. These are towns that are way out in the boonies that have a transfer station that are not being serviced by as many independent haulers. So it makes sense for them to centralize their garbage and, you know, haul it the 40 to 50 mile trip to the transfer station here in Brattleboro. I mean, we have so many options so close. We feel, even from a fiscal standpoint, if you're worried about your tax rate, no town involvement is the best way to go.
The other thing is, if we vote down the mobile station, is there a way that it can somehow be on the docket to be brought up in a year or whatever again? Because you said right now you wouldn't be able to do a good job of putting it together, but maybe a year from now,
Yeah, I think what that would take would be an overwhelming, majority of residents saying, hey, this isn't working. You know, these independent haulers aren't reliable. These transfer stations won't take our garbage anymore. Things like that. I do not see that happening, but I think that's what it would take for this to be looked at again.
Okay.
But yeah, it could very well be looked at again in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion on Article number 1? Mr. Pond, step up to the microphone, sir, and state your name.
George Pond. I'm a little.
You're good.
So I'm a little bewildered from a standpoint. Back years ago, when this all first started, I believe the people of the town of Vernon were led to believe that pay-as-you-throw was a mandate from the state. Could be wrong, but I don't think so. And that's how we got to where we are now. Now, we had a cardboard dumpster, we had a garbage chute, and we had a plastic or can chute that used to be up at the town garage. Never knew the real true meaning of where did it go. But it always worked well, and there wasn't a whole lot of chaos. And now, anybody that's going to sit here and tell yourself that this isn't going to cost us some money, you're all being deceived, because this is going to cost us money. It's like opening up a new business. You don't open up a new business on $0. So it is going to cost the town people some money. There's a piece of property in this town. Don't know if it's available, but on Stebbins Road, it would make the perfect place if it could be possessed from Vernon Green to put a recycling station in there. Kind of would make sense to put a person in there a little more than maybe 18 hours a week. Take your cans, put them in plastic bags, throw them on the back of a truck, take them to the thing, recoup some of your money, because naturally the guy's going to be paid very well. And, you might even get some volunteers. if things went well. But there's a lot going on here, and for some reason or other, I just, I got I got a hard time wondering if pay-as-you-throw was a mandate. Why are we doing away with it? And who are the rubbish people that you mentioned that are maybe interested in this? Do you have their names?
The select board is queried. Thank you, Mr. Pond.
I'll give it. So, George, I appreciate the history because it kind of drives my point home, specifically as a new member on the board. The period of time was so short to figure this stuff out, from Casella saying, we're doing a 300% increase with a 5-year contract with a fuel surcharge, et cetera, et cetera. This did not make sense. That was clearly did not make sense. So what do we do now? We put together a solid waste committee. We tried getting some of that information together. As far as pay-as-you-throw goes, I don't know. That is not a mandate from the state. There are many towns that aren't doing it. The mandates change as time goes on. Traditionally, they don't go away. Traditionally, we get more, but I don't know what the case was when pay-as-you-throw first came on. As far as a transfer station, again, I believe that we could do a viable transfer station here in town with the time frame that we were given and with the information that we researched and came up with during that time frame. It really, we could do better than what we had time to come up with. And and as far as who the haulers are, it's interesting you brought that up because even the haulers who would bid on this are saying, hey, I'll bid on this, but you guys probably need to put a little bit more thought and time into this on how this is going to work. We've worked with Craig Goodenough on this particularly, and he has come in with a very neutral point of view and been extremely helpful to the town. Any independent haulers that we have worked with have been extremely neutral to the point where it's like, you guys can stand up for yourselves a little bit, and you do have some good things you're offering, and you can offer them to the town. So there's no behind-the-scenes backdoor push one way or the other.
We're going to let somebody else talk first, Mr. Pond, and we'll go with Ms. Frost, and then we'll go to Mr. Pinkerton, and then after that, Ms. Carr.
Heather Frost. I would like the community to take the Solid Waste Committee's recommendation and vote no on this. And I would like to call the question.
The question has been called. Is there a second? Moved and seconded, we cease debate. It takes a 2/3 motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The chair is in doubt. All those in favor, please stand. And I'm going to walk around and count. Or maybe I could get the couple of members of the BCA to do that? Thank you. Please be seated. All those against the motion, please stand. Please be seated. Listen now to the result of your vote. On ceasing debate on Article 1, voting yes, 56. Voting no, 24. The motion to cease debate has been passed. We now go to a vote on the article The motion is that voters appropriate the sum of $167,492 to be comprised of $16,450 for supplies, materials, and yard fencing to be paid from the Solid Waste Fund, $58,200 for trash roll-off rental, part-time attendant, and trash disposal fees to be paid from pay-as-you-throw revenue, and the balance of $92,842 for recycling roll-off and compost container rental, as well as recycling, compost, and municipal solid waste disposal fees to be raised by taxes. All those in favor of Article 1 as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The nays have it. Article 1 has been defeated. Article number 2, shall the voters authorize the town to dissolve the pay-as-you-throw fund and cover any negative expenditure from the solid waste fund? Is there a motion on the floor? Mrs. Carr.
I move that the town dissolves the pay-as-you-throw fund, covering any negative expenditure with the solid waste fund.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded that the town dissolves the pay-as-you-throw fund, covering any negative expenditure with the solid waste fund. Does the board wish to speak to the motion? Ms. Carr, go ahead.
Mr. Moderator, I move to amend Article number 2 to include an appropriation from municipal solid waste up to $18,000 to be expended from the solid waste fund.
Is there a second? Do I hear a second? Shout out, because
I got the mic.
it's a cavern in here. Okay. So it has been moved and seconded the town dissolves the pay-as-you-throw fund covering any negative expense with the solid waste fund and appropriate up to $18,000 for municipal solid waste to be expended from the solid waste fund. Discussion on the motion. Mr. Bukasi.
Yeah, so just to speak to that, because I know this is confusing language as well. I know it was for me when I first started looking into this. So as far as the pay-as-you-throw fund, we have a solid waste fund that, it's money the town has set aside to investigate a transfer station and put towards the development of a transfer station in the future, if so, or any solid waste issue. So we have this solid waste fund. As far as the pay-as-you-throw fund right now is, there's about $8,000 in that account, so there would be no negative expenditure that would have to be covered.
Thank you. Further discussion on the Carr amendment to Article 2, Mr. Brzezinski.
Don Rzinski. I think the 18 that you're talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, will be to cover the municipal dumpster in the high school and the town garage. Was that what that thought was? I'm curious.
Right, it'd be all of the town properties and the school.
Okay. Being that being known, I was at the last informational meeting, and I think it's important that people realize pay-as-you-throw did not go well. There are various reasons why it did not go well, and God knows we can point fingers this way and that way, but I would strongly urge the voters of this town to vote out the town's involvement with solid waste and allowing the $18,000. We're going to have that kind of pickup with dumpsters for the town properties. That's understood. But there's no reason all of us can't stand up like adults and either get a sticker for the dump. We are paying a membership, I believe, to the Wyndham Solid Waste, which is mandatory. But as Brandon said, there are a lot of options out there for those of us who may want to have somebody come and get our trash, or may want to have a dumpster or something like that. My understanding is 23% of the people in town are using the current system. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think Casella gave us the number 25 to 30 on trash.
25 to 30. That's a pretty small number when you consider the whole town. It's a convenience thing. This pay-as-you-throw has always been a convenience thing. And there are a ton of other towns. We know a few that have their own transfer station, but to me, building a transfer station is like digging a big hole, and it's going to continue to be bigger and bigger and bigger. So my suggestion is we take care of the town properties with a contract for pickup, and vote the town get out of the trash business altogether. Thank you.
Further discussion on the amendment to Article number 2? Go ahead. Mrs. Morrison.
Sandy Morrison. I'm a little confused about the money part of this. And if we authorize the town to dissolve the pay-as-you-throw, I mean, I'm thinking we have to get rid of that because we're not going to, that wasn't an option for the town to vote to keep it. So there's money left, I believe. If I understand these figures in the first article, all the money that was a possibility that it could have been used for the transfer station, can or will that all be set aside? So if we all try doing our own trash for a year or whatever, and it doesn't work well, and we come back to this 6 months, a year from now, whatever, you said we can try it, and it may come back, will the funds still be there? Are there this money? Or is it going to go for the town pickup? Or how does that work? And you mentioned that there are a lot of suppliers or I forgot what you called them. But when I was at the information meeting the other night, I got the feeling that they weren't interested in doing curbs, coming around and picking up trash, that you could maybe get a dumpster from them. But could you explain a little more what the options might be?
The board is queried. Mr. Bukasi.
Yeah, so to answer your first question, and Cindy, correct me if I'm wrong, there's two different funds here. We have this solid waste fund and we have the pay-as-you-throw fund. The pay-as-you-throw fund is directly related to paying what they call the tipping fee at the dump. You know, the bags are kind of priced accordingly to cover the tipping fee. That has about an $8,000 surplus in it right now. We would have to decide to do with what to do with that $8,000. As far as the solid waste fund, that's Cindy, how much is in the solid waste fund? Can you explain?
Mrs. Turnley.
As of the end of May, the solid waste fund has $113,542.43 in it. However, bear in mind for both of these funds, we are still going to have bills coming in. So I can't guarantee what the ending result will be at that point, but you are correct, there's $8,653.46 in pay-as-you-throw and $113,542.43 in solid waste at this point.
Further discussion on the amendment to Article 2. Mr. Hicks, come on over.
I think Munson Hicks. I think that there may well be people who are interested in having a transfer station in the future. I think it would be probably a good idea to set aside that money we're talking about in some form of escrow, so it is there in a year rather than spend it on other things for this year, just so we have that as a possibility. It may not work out, and we may decide that we really like going to Old Ferry Road once a week, or having trash haulers pick it up. But I think it would be unfortunate if we just let the money slip away without looking toward the future of how we might use it.
Mr. Bukasi.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100% from a personal standpoint. I believe from my basic understanding of how the solid waste fund works and how and Cindy will correct me if I'm wrong, there's going to be a significant amount of money in that solid waste fund because the only thing we're paying out of that would be this $18,000 if we vote on it, correct, Cindy? Or is there other expenses out of that?
Mrs. Turnley?
Yes, Cindy Turnley. We also have the assessment, it's a quarterly assessment that comes out. So that comes out of the solid waste fund as well.
Go ahead, Mr. Bukasi.
So that would still leave a significant balance in that fund from my perspective. As far as the haulers go, any independent hauler I have talked to, they are willing to come do curbside pickup. They were worried about, they really put a lot of time and effort into this, and they were worried about the people saying they're trying to, line their own pockets or be unfair if they stood up and said, hey, choose us instead of this. So they really wanted to come at this from a neutral perspective. But there is, I can think of 3 different haulers at least that has expressed a willingness to do curbside pickup, not dumpster, curbside pickup in town.
Further discussion on the amendment to Article 2. Mrs. Manning, please come up to the microphone. We're taping this for BCTV. You will come up. What's that? We also have interpreters. Did not realize you have a cane, but we would have brought you a microphone if I had known.
Sorry, Norman Manning. I'm just wondering, because I don't know the legal aspect of this, you checked with the lawyers to see if we can set a fund aside and suspend it in case you might need it? Is that something that normally happens?
The fund already exists. The pay-as-you-throw fund, there's like that $8,000. Currently, there's that $8,000 surplus there. When we kind of settled up with pay-as-you-throw, I don't know what will be there, and I don't know the specifics of what will happen with that money. But it's it's going to be probably $8,000 or less. I don't think that it would grow. So it's a small enough amount that, as far as what happens with it, yes, it is important, but I think there would be some options. It wasn't a critical. I didn't see that as a critical part of getting rid of this fund, the pay-as-you-throw fund.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment to Article 2, Mr. Pond.
So going with if we went the way we're thinking about or talking about to the individual haulers, I do know for a fact Craig Goodenough, he has his own roll-off and his own tractor trailers to haul his own stuff out of his yard. Now, if it's anybody else in this town that wants to do pickup or is interested in this contract, they're going to have to pay Casella anyways because there's no place else to take it. The thing is, the reason Casella, I feel, went as high as they did because Casella doesn't like door-to-door. They are a roll-off in a dumpster company. And if they want to get rid of something, why not make it so expensive you can't afford it? And I believe that is the deal.
Further discussion on the amendment to Article 2. Please come to the microphone. Anybody else, just line up in back of Ms. Thomas.
Eleanor Thomas. So I want to go back to the amendment on the article. What do you need the $18,000 for?
Mr. Bukasi.
That is to cover the cost of getting rid of the trash and recycling, like at the town office building, the school, the highway department, the rec area.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we vote at town meeting to put money to cover those expenses already?
The select board and/or administrator was queried. Or Mrs. Turnley.
Mrs. Turnley?
I believe if I'm correct, they only put enough in through the end of September. And then they were waiting to find out what we were going to do, and that's where we are today. They did not do it for the full fiscal year.
Okay, so, but the municipal part of trash pickup was not part of any of this. We were always going to have municipal trash pickup, so I'm confused why we didn't do a whole fiscal year of municipal trash pickup, which is separate.
The board is queried again. Mr. Bukowski.
So the municipal trash pickup was part of that transfer station. If we had a transfer station, we were under the assumption that the municipal garbage would go there. I figured in tipping fees tonnage for the municipal trash pickup there. Since we voted that down, we need to come, this probably, you're right, this probably should have been added as part of this and not an amendment. It's just something that,
Okay, so can you confirm that at town meeting, we only voted to do municipal trash pickup through September?
I personally cannot. I don't know if anyone else on the board can.
I'm seeing nodded heads from a couple of board members.
Okay, I just don't think that was clear to people at town meeting, that we were only doing a partial year.
I believe everything kind of went to September 30th. So
Okay, I would ask, though, that you check, because I don't believe that is how it was
Well,
presented to us at town meeting.
the treasurer is checking.
Mrs. Turnley.
Cindy Turnley. I'm reading Article 20. It says, shall the voters appropriate the sum of $15,098.72? That's for the assessment. That was voted in. And then this Article 21 says, shall the voters appropriate funding for curbside recycling, municipal building refuse collection from July 1st, 2024 to September 30th, 2024. So only covered that time period.
Okay, thanks.
Any further discussion on the article? Mr. Cochran and then Ms. Weston, please line up in back of each other and we'll try to get this moving along.
Gregory Corcoran. So real quick, and I think the long history of this, I really just want to talk to everyone that probably remembers that there was a large part of town, or a vocal part of town, that for a long time opposed the pay-as-you-throw. They just wanted to do their own thing. And everyone said, well, the pay-as-you-throw, it's so easy, it made sense fiscally, but it definitely doesn't make sense anymore. So I think that those people were right, and it's very clear that we should have nothing to do at the transfer station. I think we should put this to bed forever, because we're just going to pay more and more. It's taxes plus you're paying for the bag and the sticker. You could go to Brattleboro transfer station, no problem. I guarantee you, anyone who has curbside pickup, if you call Franklin Waste, you'd be even happier than you were. It costs less than it costs for pay-as-you-throw. It's the same service. They just don't want to have the town middleman, and you're paying it in your taxes. Most people aren't using it. We never, ever need a transfer station. There's a huge one, Casella's building. Just call Franklin or Good Enough or anybody else. Have them bring it down there for you. The cost works. We should just keep that $100,000 that I'm always surprised. We have all these little set-aside funds. That's great. That'll pay for the town to take the trash out of municipal buildings for 5 years, and we can just never think about this again. So never transfer station. Just vote this down, clear it up. We got out of this great, and just let's never talk about it again.
Mrs. Weston.
First of all, I don't know what the assessment is that they talk about that we pay for as a town. What's assessment of what? Okay, so.
Mr. Bukowski.
That's an assessment to Wyndham Solid Waste District. Bob Spencer's here. Bob, can you speak to that?
Mr. Spencer, I'll have you use my microphone if you want.
It's Bob Spencer. I'm the director of Wyndham Solid Waste and a resident of Vernon. We, at the district, have 18 member towns where they voted at town meeting to join the district at various times over the last 27 years or whatever. And once a town is in the district, whatever expenses the district incurs running all these solid waste programs is factored against the revenues, and there's this annual tax assessment to each town based on population. For Vernon last year, or this current fiscal, it's $15,700 approximately. In perspective, 2014, it was $26,000. So we've brought it way down through a whole host of reasons. But the assessment is for Wyndham Solid Waste Management District membership. I did drop off on the table flyers that list all the fees that are incurred if you use the district. And as a member town, you have full access to all those services.
Thank you. The other thing is, just to note, we use pay-as-you-throw, and it's worked great for us. It costs us $5 a month. I mean, so we've been very happy with it. But I know it's just not, I'm amazed at how few people actually use it, because it worked great for us. But again, with the taxes, if we do this and everybody's taking care of their own trash, is it going to save us on our taxes?
Mr. Bukowski.
It should. The town's not spending money,
So,
it seems to me. It should.
yeah, I think so a lot of this, part of the reason that it's going to take a year to figure out a transfer station is because of how confusing this solid waste stuff is in sorting it out. So I think that the short answer is yes. You used yourself as an example. It's just yourself and your husband,
Right.
$5 a month, versus a family of, 6 to 8. That would look very different.
Right.
Pay as you throw would look very different there. So, and just to add to Bob's, as far as what that assessment does cover, my understanding of what that assessment covers as well is there are some state regulations that we would have to take care of as a town that are covered by being a member of Wyndham Solid Waste. So there are some solid waste regulations that are covered by being a member.
Thank you, but again, will our taxes go down when we all take care of our own trash? Will our
Yeah, I think that I can't speak to the entire tax rate, but your solid waste, if you want to say your solid waste tax rate, yes, it will. But I can't say that the overall tax rate, that it's that much of a burden that it's going to outweigh the 13% state school tax increase. No, I don't think solid waste is going to do that. But yeah, I think that, and the solid waste felt like yes, the solid waste committee felt like yes, this is a fiscal gain for residents of town.
And were you going to say something?
Go ahead, Mrs. Carr.
And hopefully the treasurer will correct me if I'm wrong. The town has been paying for the recycling through taxes. You're not allowed to pay for trash through taxes, hence the pay-as-you-throw. And that developed because the laws changed. And if you were going to have trash pickup, you had to have recycling. And that's what our program got designed around.
Right, but we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to
Right.
take our own recyclable to solid waste or have a company that we individually contract with.
Correct.
Yeah, and-
I'm not sure what that number is that we've been spending on recycling. Maybe our treasurer can give us an idea.
Mrs. Turnley is queried, and then Mr. Bukowski.
Right now, per month, the recycling is costing us $5,179.16.
Mr. Bukowski, anything you wish to add?
Yeah, and just to add to that, where that made sense as a town expenditure is 80% of the town was using the recycling program. So it made sense for this broad-based article at town meeting to cover that expense because the usage was so high. Garbage being 25 to 30%, that's where the pay-as-you-throw, you can argue all day whether it did or not, but that's where it was designed to say, as a as a household user, you are responsible for a portion of this. And to add to that, I believe it is a state mandate for the individual haulers to pick up recycling as well as trash. So the recycling services will still be offered through the individual haulers. Is that correct, Bob? Okay.
Oh, so we'll still have curbside pickup for recyclable? Is that what you're saying? No.
Not through the town, but my understanding is, through my research, is through the individual haulers, part of that contract, since they're mandated by the state to pick up recycling as well as trash, part of that contract does include recycling. So it may even be a different day, your trash versus recycling, of the current setup is now.
One last thing. Just someone commented, would it be feasible for the select board, the town, to either post it on our Facebook page or somewhere, the list of the various trash companies that people use? I know there's Frank.
Moderator's prerogative. I posted it there last Thursday.
You did, all of them?
Yes.
Okay, well then I will check. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you very much.
Ms. Frost.
Heather Frost, could we have a review of what the article that we are voting on? And I would like to call the question.
I can read that for you right now if you'd like. We are voting on the amendment to Article 2. The amendment says that the town dissolves the pay-as-you-throw fund covering any negative expenditure with the solid waste fund and appropriate up to $18,000 for municipal solid waste to be expended from the solid waste fund. With that in mind, Ms. Frost has called the question. All those in favor of ceasing debate, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You've ceased debate. You are voting now on the amendment to Article 2. All those in favor of amending Article 2 as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You've amended Article 2. We now go for a vote on the article as amended. All those in favor of passing Article 2 as amended, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You've passed Article 2 as amended. Seeing no other business to come before this body, I declare this special town meeting to be adjourned. Have a good night.